All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, down there in Dacula, Georgia itself. Matt Green. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It is good to be back with you on a Sunday night as the reigning national champions of college football. Once again, we had to keep the festivities going, into this week after an excellent week for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Man, still feeling pretty good. Have you rewatched the game since it happened?
I actually have.
Okay.
So the very next day, I just stumbled upon just some little 15-minute highlight of the game that was just basically every key play, and I watched that and I was like, I feel like I basically watched the game. But no, the other night I was like, I have to rewatch the game because it was obviously. It's funny when you rewatch some games. It's like you're like the Ohio State game. It's like, I don't necessarily want to watch Ohio State drive down the field and score on us easily. So you might fast forward a little bit, get to the good stuff for Georgia. Mm-hmm. But in this one, it was like every single series is just like, oh, it's a touchdown, it's a touchdown, it's a touchdown, it's a field goal, it's a touchdown, it's a touchdown, or it's a pick on defense, it's a forced fumble, it's a 3 and out, it's a sack, it's another pick. It's like the entire, other than the one busted coverage in the first half. So it's like, it's kind of insane. Like when you watch a game, lots of times you're watching some of these blowouts, like maybe you win 45-7 and you're up 38-3 or 38-0 at the half or something like that. And you're like, okay, I basically saw all the scoring, but this game's 38-7. You're like, wait, we're like halfway to our total right now. Mm-hmm. What we're going to do. Just kept watching, and even the game in garbage time, Georgia just kept moving the ball. It was insane. Honestly, I don't even know if we talked about the game enough last week because it was just like such a beatdown. It's like, what is there to say? Georgia's like running college football now, but it's insane the numbers they put up because it's like, it's really just, that was the question about Georgia. Like they've been so dominant, but it's like, how good is the offense, And it's like for them to score the most points in the history of a bowl game, like any bowl game ever, biggest margin in a bowl game ever, not just the national championship, but just any bowl game, like to score 65 points is just insane. Like we know TCU wasn't like the best defense in the country, but they weren't giving up a lot of points. Like they weren't doing anything like that. This wasn't a Oklahoma team traditionally coming out of the Big 12, but yeah, it looked real easy. And that was, watching it again on replay, it was like, it really was. That Stetson Bennett touchdown that was just a walk-in where he, like, two guys, not only was Stetson untouched, but Broderick Jones and Kendall Milton blocking for him were untouched. Like, that's when it was like, okay, this is going to be too easy. I was reminded of Noshawn Marino against Hawaii, where he just gave it the two-hand, like, this is too easy. Get out of here. What are we doing on the field with this team?
Different vibe, though, because I remember that was one of those, because, I mean, I'm a big Hawaii guy and a big Colt Brennan guy. Obviously was going pretty hardcore for Hawaii in that game. But I also went into it, was like, probably not gonna win that game. And it was one of those weird ones where Georgia fans were really proud of blasting Hawaii in that moment. I don't know if it was because they were annoyed they got Hawaii in that spot with the kind of season they have, but they were really proud of just destroying those two-star offensive linemen, getting to Colt Brennan, really wrecking havoc there.
But if you remember, there was a lot of people that were picking Hawaii. Like, they were undefeated.
That was our hearts. Like, we were doing it with our hearts, not our minds.
I remember Mark May and Lou Holtz on ESPN, or whoever they had at the time, picking against multiple people picking against Georgia, because I think that Hawaii team was undefeated and it was this exciting offense and everything. So I don't know. I think the black jerseys just get the fans going. So it was like the fact that you rock the black jerseys again in the Sugar Bowl, and it was like such a beatdown. It was good stuff. It was.
When do we see those?
It
again?
was
do you think we see them again this year?
We'll see him in the spring game and every recruiting picture, but I don't know, man. I can't explain why Georgia doesn't wear the black jerseys more.
Well, here's a question. What do you think we see first? The all white with the white helmets, or the black jerseys with the red helmets?
No, I don't think I don't know if we'll ever see the white helmets, but I mean, it wasn't a bad look, but hopefully we just see the black jerseys. Like, that's all we need. Like, we even changed up with the throwbacks a couple years ago. I mean, we did rock black, I should say. In 2020, they rocked black twice, but it was those dog collar.
Those were not good
ones that I was just not a fan of. So just the simple black alternate. It's like one of the best uniforms out there. Like, I wish Georgia would rock it at least once a year at home or something, or just like maybe you only rock red at home, so it's like an opportunity like at LSU or something, like where you're gonna, I don't know, something like that, or you're gonna wear your home jersey, but you can rock an alternate, kind of like Tennessee did at LSU this year, rock the gray, like or SEC championship, college football playoff, like let's bust them out. We've seen Georgia win a title in red and in white, like bust out the black next time you're in the national title game, like that I'd be all for it.
I'm going to go ahead and guess Tennessee doesn't bring the orange helmets back anytime soon. I think those are dead for the foreseeable future. I don't know if we'll see those again. No. I think those are goners.
They were worth a shot. Like, I'll give them. I don't hate them for trying. But once you saw them on the field, it was like, is this Clemson? Like,
well, no, that's not the issue. It was getting blasted by South Carolina in the debut.
There is that. But I think Tennessee just stick with their all white, like, and their occasional the gray alternate. But yeah,
I mean, they're going to do the black once a year, and they'll do the gray once a year, and then they'll do the orange and white for the rest of it. But the black and gray are not going anywhere.
The black's here to stay. I don't know. The black's questionable. I'm a fan of the gray. Black,
I don't know. The black. I think with the black helmets, you didn't like that. It looked good.
It looked good. It's just not Tennessee. I think the identity of the uniform is just very important to me. It's like Georgia doesn't lose any identity with the black jerseys. They always rock red and black. Like Tennessee, I give them a little bit of leeway because they only have like two colors. It's like orange and white. So I give them the leeway with the gray for the Smokies, but then you got the black too. Like, I don't know. It's better than Iowa State rocking black and white. That's for sure. Like, I'll give Tennessee that, and they actually look good. They were good looking uniforms, but
yeah,
I don't know. I have my own thing as a uniform guy, so it's probably pretty inconsistent.
Well, Matt, you were at the University of Georgia Championship Parade this weekend. Was it cold? What was it like? It looked cold. I feel like back-to-back years it's been like just really, really cold temperatures. Probably because hell freezing over, or there's something to Georgia going back-to-back. There has to be something there. But what was the experience like, Matt Green?
I'm sure it has nothing to do with it being the second week of January or
Seems
anything
irrelevant.
like that. But yeah, I don't miss a championship parade, sir. That's bottom line. I was not aware of championship parades back in '95 for the Atlanta Braves, so I get the pass for that one. But yeah, all three that we've gotten with the Braves and these Georgia back-to-backs gotta be a part of the crowd. Just see Kirby and the fellas. Just the streets of Athens just packed. It was cool. And then we went downtown to Creature Comforts after. So it was like it's a good time, hang out in Athens. So yeah, gotta do it.
Did you call out anybody? Like, did you run into anybody at the game? Like, or at the parade? Did you run into Kirby or anybody while you were walking around?
No, I didn't have any sort of like celebrity sighting or anything.
No.
I did see Keely Ringo's mom at one point. She seems like a low key celebrity. But yeah, no, I didn't.
For good reason.
Yeah, she really is. She's a great story and everything. So, but yeah, that was it was a good time in Athens.
There you go. And we should also say, I mean, just horrific stuff coming out. We're taping this late on a Sunday, but what came out early Sunday morning with a University of Georgia interior lineman passing away, a recruiting assistant also passing away in a car accident late on Sunday. But just, I mean, horrific stuff. And just the range of emotions for the players in that team, right? Like, you're spending the day celebrating back-to-back titles. And with him, like he's involved in all of that. And he started a lot of games this year, correct? Devin Willock.
He did. I think he'd have the fourth most snaps for any returning offensive lineman. Obviously, had this not occurred in football, what he does as a football player is obviously totally irrelevant to the bigger picture of, you know, losing your life at 20 years old, and as well as I'm sorry, I'm blanking on Chandler LaCroix, the Georgia football staffer as well. So yeah, super sad, especially like you said, such a happy moment celebrating a championship, and then Warren McClendon and another staffer, I don't know her name, were I guess also in the car. So they were hospitalized, but I think they're doing okay. But yeah, really really sad stuff.
It's just crazy. I mean, hey, that's just crazy. You never know, and just I don't know. I cannot imagine like what Kirby had to say and those families are dealing with, because like, again, just the highest of highs and just that kind of tragedy in the same basically 24-hour period is just horrific. Like there's nothing else you can say. It's crazy, horrific, and life can be really scary and just really not fair. Like that's just,
yeah. And apparently his half brother, Devin Willock's half brother, back in 2009 also died in a car accident when he was also 20 years old, and like a car accident like the middle of the night too. So it's like the parents, well, I don't know whichever parent, but yeah, having to go through that like a second time with a 20-year-old child, like that's super sad. So rest in peace. Like, you know, thoughts for those families for sure.
Absolutely. Switching gears a little bit, this episode is going to be, with it being the off season now, officially our first off season episode. Matt Green, we have different ideas that we're going to do each week. We're going to obviously be going back to a once a week show with no games to preview and all that here in the off season. But this is a 24-hour sport now, and 24-hour, 7-day-a-week sport now, especially 24-hour with the transfer portal. If you keep up with that all day, like me and a sicko, just like, oh, is that Cormani McLean popping up at Colorado? But yeah, we're gonna see.
That time of the year, sir.
It is that time of the year, and the deadline for a certain quarterback, and really everybody who's gonna enter in the NFL draft, the deadline is January 16th, and CJ Stroud, who we last saw play the game of his career to this point against Georgia in Atlanta, and obviously came up just short, but did everything he could, left it all on the field. I think won a lot of people over who were skeptical about him all season long, and you just assumed he was going to enter the draft, like be a top 4, top 5 pick. But then I look at different mocks all the time too. He's been behind Will Levis and Bryce Young for a while. Like Bryce Young is the consensus number 1, but Will Levis is above him in everything I've seen still. And I don't know. I wonder if he's been told he might fall out of the top 10, or he's worried about where he might go. I don't know. He has to make a decision by Monday evening, and we're at the deadline. It's kind of weird that he has not officially declared. Like Blake Corum's back at Michigan, but he's a running back, a little bit different. Running backs don't go in the first round anymore. Like he has some unfinished business at Michigan. He got hurt and was knocked out down the stretch, and he could. It's a great story, him coming back and trying to get it back and get Michigan back to the playoff and get a win in year 3 of trying this gambit in Ann Arbor. But I don't know. What do you think about CJ Stroud? Still just kind of on the fence here. What do you think he should do?
I mean, you think he's got unfinished business at the college level as well? Like, hasn't won a Big Ten title as a starter. Like, hasn't won a college football playoff game. Hasn't won a Heisman. He's a 2-time finalist. But with this NIL stuff, like Columbus, that's one of the bigger cities. That's if not like the biggest city that a major Power 5 program is in. Austin would probably be as a bigger city, but Columbus, that's like a top 20, 25 market, I think, in the country. So there's a chance the NIL stuff being the quarterback at Ohio State that you don't necessarily need the money as much as guys once did coming out of the draft. But I would just think, obviously, he can accomplish more at Ohio State. So if he just loves Ohio State and he wants to win a national championship, like that's his thing. But I mean, it's hard to tell someone they should not go pro and they're going to be a top 5 pick. Like I see the same mock drafts you do where he's like maybe the 3rd quarterback picked after Will Levis, and I just don't believe it. It's like I'll believe it when I see it. Like CJ Stroud's always been considered better than Will Levis, and because Mel Kiper has Will Levis up here, like that's going to influence what all these NFL teams are doing. Like I'll believe that when I see it. I think there's no chance CJ Stroud goes any later than like 5th in the draft, and it's just how do you turn that down? So it's interesting the fact that he's if you're listening to this on Monday, it's obviously that's going to be the deadline, and he still hasn't declared as of this point. But it is worth noting. But surely he's going to announce that he's going pro before the deadline.
Yeah. But we'll see ultimately what happens here. They lost their big 2024 number 1 consensus quarterback. What was his name? Raiola? Is that his name?
Dylan Raiola, yeah. Number 1 player in the country in 2024. The crystal balls are coming in for Georgia on Raiola. So, Georgia didn't get a quarterback in this 2023 class. So, I mean, they have, I think it's Ryan Puglisi. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, from like Connecticut or something. He's like a top 10 quarterback that's currently committed to Georgia in that class. But, yeah, I think if Raiola commits, like, he's definitely he's gonna move and shake the quarterback recruiting landscape around.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Ultimately, still a lot of time. I don't know the latest on Jadon Rashada. I don't think he was not registered. I remember seeing that on Twitter. There's like Florida beat writers who were monitoring class ad drop and like registration for Rashada, and last I saw he wasn't. So I don't know what that means. If that matters that he's not in classes this semester. I don't know, man. That's an absolute mess at UF, and just
yeah, I mean, it sounds like a NIL. Someone backed out of an NIL deal or something like that, and that's why Rashada's not enrolling. I don't know. It's a crazy situation. I don't know. I mean, he was committed to Miami at one point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we don't know, but whatever we do know, the optics are bag. There's a Freudian slip there. Are just bad. And no matter what happens from here on out, I think this is just not good from a recruiting optics standpoint for future recruits. So they gotta clean this up in a hurry.
Yeah, and I think there's something to it, like early on, getting that big 5-star quarterback commit. Like I think that there's just something, now that I think about it, like there's so many you can kind of name, like with Kirby and like Jacob Eason, with Heupel's gotten Nico committed, like. You go back to Mark Richt getting like DJ Shockley like his first year. It's like there's something to that kind of that big time quarterback buying in early to just kind of influence the direction of your program. And so to lose a guy like we were all already questioning the direction of Florida's program under Napier, and now you got something like this going on that's also going to derail the recruiting class. Like it's not looking good down on the swamp.
No, might be a full season of Graham Mertz, Mr. Matt Green. So that might be the situation here.
Anthony Richardson to Graham Mertz. It doesn't get much different than that.
No. Well, we're gonna do our coordinator carousel episode here tonight, Matt Green, because there's been a lot of coordinator changes, a lot of transfer quarterback changes, and we'll get into some more transfer stuff in the offseason, even some head coaching changes. But we've done that a little bit back in December when the regular season wrapped up. And I kind of wanted to do the coordinator one because I think this is really, really fascinating to see a lot of these guys bounce around. Some stunners who went to new schools, and I think we kind of overlook where a program's going and just put so much on the head coach where it's like you need to look at the coordinators. Like going from Coley to to Todd Monken, it's a big deal for the Dogs. That changed a lot of Georgia's trajectory here. And they were at a crossroads where it's like, this is not working. Kirby's got to evolve. All right, I'm going to go get Todd Monken, and we're going to change in a major way, and they did, and are now won back-to-back titles. So I think people can overlook this stuff a little bit too much when it comes to coordinators, because they are extremely important to where your university and your team and program is going on a year-to-year basis. And I want to read these off, and then we're going to get into some broad questions and then break down the different ones. But I have 9 that I wanted to hit on tonight. Garrett Riley to Clemson, Pete Golding to Ole Miss, and we'll add some Alabama stuff there too. Bobby Petrino to Texas A&M, Kevin Barbay to Mississippi State, Sean Lewis to Colorado, Chip Lindsey to UNC, Dal Logans to South Carolina, Phil Longo to Wisconsin, and Jay Hill to BYU, Matt Green. So of that list, which one do you like the most? Which coordinator jump do you like the most for that program?
I think the easy answer is Garrett Riley, right? I think that just, not only is he the best coach hired on this list, but he's just the most surprising. Like, with how Clemson has been doing things, like, I think this is a huge, like, I don't know, just not red flag, but it's a huge sign that, like, Dabo is kind of aware of where this program is. Like, he's aware of the national perception of this program right now, and he's aware that something needs to be done and, like, a big change needs to happen. So I think there were some people who kind of thought, like, there's a chance, at least a distant thought in my head, that, like, maybe that 2013, 2014 to 2020 run of Clemson football is just the golden era of Clemson football. We're never going to see that again. But to get a guy like Garrett Riley, like, I was kind of surprised, because as the Broyles Award winner, like, obviously Clemson is a more big-time job. I don't know the numbers, but I'm sure they can pay Garrett Riley more than TCU could. But being the Broyles Award winner at TCU, he didn't necessarily need to go make a lateral move. I kind of thought his next step would be a head coaching job. So I was a little surprised from that standpoint. But I think this is massive for Clemson. I think he could. I think they needed something like this. I think he could do big things for sure.
Yeah, I thought he was just going to wait out Jimbo, right? Like, just wait out Jimbo for a little bit longer, and then just get the head job over at Texas A&M. But, I think it's one, like you said, I think the biggest thing is we questioned going into last year if it was wise for Jimbo or for Dabo to run it back and just promote from within with Goodman and Mickey Kahn, Grayson head coach legend, working the defense, and then Brandon Streeter, who'd been with them a long time. I know he was Trevor Lawrence's guy as QB coach and stuff like that, but it did not work. And I mean, they had 100 plays against Tennessee in the Orange Bowl and just had no points to show from him. The offense just wasn't working. DJU did not work out over 2 years, and he's a 5-star kid, and they did not keep that thing moving and keep it humming. And with Cade Klubnik in the fold, that you can't mess up 2 back-to-back 5-stars, or that just, I think it starts to leave an impression on those talented quarterbacks around the country where, like, I don't think they're developing quarterbacks like they used to. I think we're going to go somewhere else. And then that changes the trajectory a little bit with the Clemson program. But I didn't see this coming. Like, I didn't see him actually going down. I thought Dabo would be more, would see this through a little bit longer than at least a year with Streeter and company. Like, I thought he's a pretty loyal dude and would keep it going. But Jeff Scott, I think, is coming back as some kind of analyst, assistant, or whatever after being fired from USF. So he's entering back into the fold to help there. But, I mean, it's obviously an upgrade, right, talent-wise, for Garrett Riley. He gets to work with, obviously, one of the premier groups in the country. He gets to work with Cade Klubnik, who, I mean, this is a huge win for him if you're Cade Klubnik's family. And if you're a Clemson fan, like, this is like, if you were getting nervous about the direction of the program under Dabo with a lot of the departures, what this looked like against Tennessee in the bowl game, and just not looking like the same Clemson of old the last couple of years since Trevor Lawrence departed. Well, this, I think, is kind of a home run, like you said. Like, I think this is like a commitment to, hey, this year happened. This is not going to be the trend going forward. We have an expectation of dominance on both sides of the ball year in, year out. We recruit at a high level. We spend a bunch of money on this football program. You guys spend a bunch of money on this football program. We're going to get it right and work to get it right every year. And that makes it kind of a cutthroat type thing. But it's like, we're going to go get the best offensive coordinator on the market, who might not even be on the market. We're just going to go take some big swings. And they did, and they go out and get Garrett Riley. I think it's a home run thing. TCU finished 9th in scoring last year. Clemson was 30th. Shane Beamer can deny he wanted Garrett Riley, all he wanted, but like, hey, I'm sure every South Carolina fan is just like, yeah, we're good with Dowdy. Like, you can have Garrett Riley. How did he do against Georgia in the national title game? 7 points. Like, who wants Garrett Riley under those circumstances?
I was gonna say that's what Dabo saw. He was like, we only managed 3 against Georgia. This guy got 7. Let's bring him on. That's a championship recipe.
Yeah, and it's one that I think Notre Dame refused to make during the Brian Kelly era, now with Marcus Freeman, where I don't know why they won't do it, where it's like Tommy Rees is still he's just there, and you're like, the offense has never been elite. Like, they never kind of venture out. Like, Tommy Rees, obviously a longtime Notre Dame quarterback and Notre Dame guy, and I think they've stuck with Chip Long for a little bit too long, and you're like, you got to get bold at some point. Like, Notre Dame actually recruits at an elite level these days, and I wondered if Marcus Freeman would go bold this offseason, or when he came in, of like, we're Tommy Breeze, we appreciate it and everything that you've done for Notre Dame football, but we're going to go in a different direction here a little bit because that offense isn't humming, and they're recruiting at that level. But I don't know. I think for Clemson, if you're a Clemson fan, and I think for you and I, this changes how we view Clemson going into 2023, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's definitely an expectation that, I mean, this was Garrett Riley's first year at TCU, obviously with Sonny Dykes being his first year as the head coach. So, I mean, he did wonders in 1 year. And Clemson, I mean, let's be honest, Clemson probably has better players than TCU, with all respect to how good their skill players on this particular offense were. Clemson just usually recruits at a better level. So, I mean, yeah, I would imagine Garrett Riley's going to have some talent to work with.
For sure. Which hire of that list did you like the least, Matt Green, for this program?
I got to go Pete Golding. That's the one that I think is I think really remains to be seen, because it's like, did he leave Alabama for Ole Miss, or did Alabama say, hey, why don't you go look for another job at Ole Miss? Like, why don't you go see what else you can have? We're probably gonna try to upgrade. So, I mean, you just look like what are you really getting with Pete Golding? I mean, you look at Alabama. The last 15 years, they've had 11 top 10 defenses, scoring defenses. One of those was in the last 5 years under Pete Golding. Like from 2008 to 2017, Alabama's average defense was ranked 3rd, giving up 13.1 points per game over like almost a decade. And for Pete Golding's 5 years, their average is 13th. This is still Alabama. It's not bad, but they're giving up an average of 18.9 points per game the last 5 years. And it's just like, we know the talent that Alabama's getting. We saw what Kirby Smart was doing with this defense. We saw what Jeremy Pruitt did with this defense. And then Pete Golding came along, and it's just not at the same level. It's good now, but good is not what Alabama prides himself on. And they want to be elite. They want to be the best in the country. So I'm really curious to see where Alabama goes, because like Ole Miss, they need a savior for this defense. Like, you've seen a Lane Kiffin. One of the years they were like 100th in the country in defense. Like, this past couple of years, I think they were 50th. Like, they're
57th.
57th. Like, they have not been good defensively. They need someone to completely change that. And based on what Pete Golding's done at Alabama, like, I'm not really sure that much is really going to change.
I think you're being a little bit too hard on Pete Golding, but I also think you're not taking enough into account. It's Ole Miss, Matt Green. Like, this is a huge win, I think, for Ole Miss. Like, they were ninth. Bama was ninth in scoring defense. Ole Miss was 57th. Like, there's no way Pete Golding's worse than Chris Partridge this past year. There's no way Ole Miss's defense gets worse with Pete Golding coming into the fray. Like, I mean,
but the players are a lot worse at Ole Miss than they're going to be at Alabama, playing against very similar competition in the SEC West.
I just feel like this is kind of a gift hire for Kiffin, where, I mean, obviously they cross paths when he was at Bama with Pete Golding. I don't know. It's like we're going to find out the chops for Pete Golding, right? Where it's like you've been under the Saban umbrella where it's hard to figure out some of these guys, like, are they good or are they not because they played at Alabama or they coached at Alabama. It's like, what would they look like in an average scheme or an average supporting cast? Like, we're about to learn right away if Pete Golding is a good standalone defensive coordinator at Ole Miss. Like you said, where the talent's a little bit different. But Kiffin won 10 games last year, 9 this year. I mean, the dude flirted with back-to-back 10-win seasons with a pretty subpar defense. I think if Pete Golding gets him to like 20th, 25th, if he can get him somewhere around there, and their offense is back to where it was 2 years ago with Matt Corral, and Kiffin can get them in that top 10, like, it's another 10, 11. Like, you're Ole Miss. Like, national championships are not the expectation. Could they have a really good foundation and a really good program if your base is Pete Golding and Lane Kiffin on both sides of the ball? I think that's a really good place to be.
I mean, I think that's possible. You know, it's not. He could make. They might not be a juggernaut defensively, but he could make them better than they currently are. But I mean, if you look at it, it's just like Alabama's defensive coordinator, just on paper. Look at the resume. Alabama's defensive coordinator leaving to be the defensive coordinator at Ole Miss. It's like that doesn't really make sense. You know, it's like if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. Like. If a guy is just making a lateral move like that from Alabama, there's probably a chance he couldn't cut it at Alabama, honestly, because usually the guys who are leaving for Alabama are leaving for pro jobs or for NFL job or for head coaching jobs. So, you know, I think who've been the last few coordinators to leave Nick Saban? I mean, it's Kirby Smart, it's Jeremy Pruitt on defense, it's
Mel Tucker.
Sarkisian, it's Lane Kiffin, it's, you know, the list goes on. Yeah, the list goes on. So this guy's leaving for a lateral job. It's like, I think it's probably because he wasn't necessarily cut out to be Alabama's defensive coordinator. But it's like, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean he can't improve Ole Miss's defense, like you're saying. There's a lot of room for improvement for Ole Miss defensively.
Yeah, I just look at it. If I'm an Ole Miss fan, I'm like, awesome, let's ride. Like, what are your options? Like, could you really have done better than Pete Golding? I don't think so. I think it's a really slam dunk deal if you're Ole Miss. I think we have to readjust our expectations. They're never going to be Bama. They're never going to be Georgia, but they can be really good. They can be a 10-win team, 11-win team when they have the right quarterback and they have the kind of talent you need around this group. I mean, I don't know. I'm still super high on Kiffin and what he's got building there. We'll see how he handles this really weird quarterback room this spring, because it might include Spencer Sanders, Jackson Dart, and Mike Wright, all in the same quarterback room. But we'll see if that ultimately is what happens here. But either way, I think it will be interesting to see, and I think Bama's going to have new coordinators on both sides of the ball, right? I think that's part of where we're going. Like, Bill O'Brien's still the favorite to get the Patriots offensive coordinator job that opened back up because Cliff Kingsbury was like also rumored, and it's like, no, I'm going to go to Thailand. I'm good for a while. I'm just going to get away. And I don't know. I think if Bill O'Brien's gone and then I think that makes sense. We're saving, like, you talk about cutthroat. Like, you lost 2 games by combined 4 points. You're not in the playoff this year. It's like, nope, massive changes. we gotta clean house on both sides of the ball. We got to readjust what we're doing. You just signed the best recruiting class in your program's history. You have David Pollock telling you to your face on a broadcast ahead of the national championship that Georgia now runs the sport. I don't know. I think it's going to be very, very fascinating to see where he goes offensively, if that is indeed where things go. But also defensively, like, they hired the whiz kid from friend of the pod, Will Hall's staff over at Southern Miss, who's done a great job. So I'm excited to see what he means. Austin Armstrong, he's not going to get the full defensive coordinator spot, but he is going to have a seems like he's going to have some sort of strong part of this defense. I mean, he ran the nasty bunch defense for the Golden Eagles, and they were really good. They were number 42 in total defense in FBS this past year. Top 10 in first downs allowed and red zone defense. So I think he's good. Obviously knows Dan Lanning and Kirby Smart well, so we'll see who else they add to the fold. But I think Bama's going to load up. Is it Glenn Schumann? Are my dreams becoming a reality, Matt Green? Could we get both Monken and Glenn Schumann to Alabama? Can we just transfer them both over? Can we do it?
Don't even put that in the atmosphere there, sir. I feel like offensive coordinator, it's going to be like a former head coach. It's going to be a Scott Frost or a Tom Herman or something. I don't know.
He just took the FAU job. It can't be Tom Herman.
Is that okay? So it's somebody of
Willie
that.
Taggart.
Yeah, I don't know what he's necessarily proved, but maybe someone a little more proven as a coordinator or as a head coach. But
Dan Mullen would be fun.
Dan Mullen would be real fun. Honestly, that does fit what I just said. But hey, Dan, don't worry about the recruits. We'll get the recruits.
Yeah, you just focus on being the brilliant offensive mind. Yeah.
No, that would be really interesting, honestly. But looking at defensively though, Glenn Schumann, he's 32 years old. He did go to Alabama. He was a grad assistant in Alabama before Kirby brought him over to Georgia. Schumann and Mel Tucker were the only two guys that Kirby immediately brought over from Alabama when he started at Georgia. And Schumann's been like his I don't know, like his, what am I trying to say? The protege. So it's hard to see Glenn Schumann leaving Kirby's staff, honestly, at this point. Like Alabama, I mean, that's as big time as it gets. You are going home. But the fact Kirby Smart had this exact same opportunity. Like 2010, Georgia tried to make him the defensive coordinator. 2014, Georgia tried to make him the defensive coordinator. He didn't make the lateral move, and a couple years later, he's the head coach at Georgia, and so it paid off for him. Like you look at the last two guys that have been the defensive coordinator at Georgia, like Mel Tucker is the head coach at Michigan State, Dan Lanning's the head coach at Oregon. Like those are big time jobs, especially for a guy as young as Schumann. Like he's 32 years old. Like the head coaching jobs are going to be there. Like especially, I mean, he's the defensive coordinator at Georgia. 3 or 4 more years. Who knows when Nick Saban retires if Schumann's like a candidate to be the head coach at somewhere like Alabama. Like I think they'd probably go someone more experienced, but it's that same record of Kirby Smart like going home. So I don't necessarily see Glenn Schumann, especially you look at what he's built at Georgia, like that inside linebacker room. Like Georgia's had 6 inside linebackers drafted, 2 in the first round since Schumann took over, and that doesn't even include Nakobe Dean, who's one of the best of them. And you look at this 2023 class, Georgia signed 3 of the top 5 inside linebackers in the country. It's like they're bringing back Smile Mondon and Dumas Johnson next year. It's like that room is just so loaded. I at this point, like Georgia's a better job than a defensive coordinator at Georgia's a better job than Alabama right now. Like I think Georgia's recruited better at that position, better collectively defensively in recent years. So it's like Glenn Schumann is part of that. So he knows what they've recruited. So it doesn't seem like it would make sense other than just the just straight up nostalgic feeling of like wanting to go back to Alabama because that is where he went to college, which is, could always be a pull for somebody. He didn't play there, so it seems. Say that again.
Isn't he from Valdosta?
I think he is from Georgia. I'm not 100% sure where he's from, but he didn't. I don't think he played there, so it's a little different than maybe Kirby Smart actually playing at Georgia than just being a student and being a grad assistant or something. I'm sure he still has a lot of loyalty to Alabama from that perspective, but I don't know. With what Georgia's built on the defensive side of the ball, especially in that inside linebacker room, Glenn Schumann's the one calling the plays with a couple defensive gurus like Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp on that staff. Like he's the one that actually calls the plays. So, a head coaching job is right around the corner. So I don't necessarily see him taking the Alabama DC job, but I wouldn't be shocked.
You wouldn't be shocked?
I wouldn't be shocked just because Alabama is big time. It's not going to be the money because Georgia can match whatever Alabama is going to throw at him. He's going to get paid this offseason, I'm sure, just from the negotiation or whatever may have you. But he's going to leave at some point. So Alabama, I think, is kind of the only place that probably could prime away from Georgia unless he wanted to go to the NFL or something like that. But, he's a great recruiter, so those guys seem to do well in college. But at some point, it's going to be Will Muschamp's defense. And I think that's just going to be for whatever decade plus, however long Kirby Smart's at Georgia. I think Muschamp might just run the defense from then on out. But to this point, it's Schumann, and you have to think he's got a head coaching job if he just waits it out a couple more years.
There you go. Biggest question hire you have? We've already mentioned Garrett Riley. Already mentioned Pete Golding. Who do you think is the biggest questionable hire for you among this list for this program, Matt Green?
I think biggest questionable hire to me is Chip Lindsey to North Carolina. I'm he's one of these the line from Office Space. Not to be disrespectful here, but what would you say it is you do here? With Auburn. It felt like Auburn he was only there a couple years, but it felt like Jarrett Stidham got worse and worse the longer he was at Auburn. So it's maybe that's on Chip Lindsey, maybe it's not. You look at Troy and what they were for a couple years. I think his last year there, they were 100 and something scoring offense in the country. So it's Chip Lindsey is a name, but I don't know if this feels like such an important hire with a guy like Drake May at quarterback. It's you can't screw this up. So I don't know. Maybe it's possible that you literally can't screw it up, and Drake May is gonna make whoever's calling plays look good. But it is at least interesting. With what they were at Auburn, with Stidham, he did have some athletic ability, and Auburn kind of always ran that little spread kind of. They really wanted to run the ball even though they spread it out. And then having a guy like Drake May, it is interesting, but I do worry about that he seems a little unproven to me.
I think so too, and I think if you have any Drake May stock, I would sell it. This is one you would sell. You mentioned it's not even just the Chip Lindsey thing. The Gus thing was always something that was weird. The longer you stayed with Gus, the worse you got for whatever reason. I don't know why, but quarterbacks just did not age well. And you ask any Auburn fan, that was one of their biggest gripes is they were so good early on with Gus, and they got worse over time in the program. And that just is weird. And that's not how things should go. Obviously he was the OC with Gus, strong ties to Gus Malzahn at UCF, and they give him a lot of credit for that. I'm how much of that was Gus? It's hard. These coordinators you feel for where it's if anything goes well, it's oh, well, it's clearly Gus and what Gus is doing. And then it's if they're struggling, it's well, that's he trusted the wrong guy here. He brought in Chip Lindsey, and we gotta get Rhett Lashley back in here. He was the guy. Kenny Dillingham was the real brains of the operation. That's where we've got to go. I'm with you though. Phil Longo, who we'll talk about in a bit, to Wisconsin, the difference from what Drake May was playing in this past year, I'm guessing he signed off on it. I'm sure he's a part of the process here, but I don't know. I guess you could say he's had some offenses that have averaged 30 points a game in 8 of his 11 seasons, which was one of the things they put out for PR, at least 30 points in 8 of his 11 seasons as a full-time staff member at the collegiate level. Caleb Barker had some good years at Troy with him, but he really didn't work out at Troy. I don't know. I think you're right. I think this is one where I'm if I had to hedge one way or the other which way this goes, I don't think this goes well for North Carolina. I don't think this goes well for Drake May. Uninspiring hire to me.
Especially because it's we've seen Mac Brown on the sidelines. No disrespect here, but he's putting very little input in on that offensive game plan. It's all the
CEO,
OC.
Man. That man is the CEO coach, the ultimate CEO.
He's just lucky if he's on the right channel as all the other coaches on his headset.
Hey, Mac Brown's a treasure. I love Mac Brown. Which hire should excite a fan base the most, Matt Green? among this list that we have not named?
You know what the sexiest hire is? We all know what the sexiest hire is. It's Bobby Petrino, because nothing says sexy like Bobby Petrino, you know? Mm-hmm. No, but Bobby Petrino, it's just like we all have our opinion of Jimbo Fisher and his personality, and we all have an opinion of Bobby Petrino and his personality. So everyone's just like, this is a train wreck, and it's gonna be hilarious, and A&M is just gonna crash and burn, and all these 5 stars are gonna transfer out, and Jimbo's going to get $80 million to leave. We can all see it happening. But Bobby Petrino is a really good offensive coach. I think that's what some people are forgetting. Like, 119-56 as a head coach. Like, this guy was a really good head coach. Head coach for 14 years in college football. 5 top 10 offenses, 9 top 20 offenses in 14 years. But he also did it so many different ways. Like, you look at this first run at Louisville with, like, Brian Brom and was it LaFours? Was that one of the guys? He had a name like that. It's like one of, like, his first 02. I don't know. I have to look it up. But Brian Brom, like, like the straight up pocket passer.
Was it Lefevre?
No, Dan Lefevre. That was Central
Michigan. Yeah.
Look, it's one of Petrino's first years at Louisville, but
LaFleur sounds right.
They had like 3 top 5 offenses in a row. You look at what he did at Arkansas, like with just a prototype, like NFL kind of quarterback, like Ryan Mallett, and then also what he did with Lamar Jackson at Louisville, and just
Stephon LaFleur's.
There you go. So the fact that he had just had so many different good offenses, so many different ways, like I feel like you can trust Petrino's gonna like figure out, like, we know A&M's got talent, so figure out what the strengths and weaknesses are, like what this team can do well, and and get the most out of them. I think this is a pretty big time hire. Like, will something happen and Jimbo and him like blow up on each other? Like, I'm sure it seems inevitable, but Bobby Petrino is a damn good offensive coordinator. So, like, you look at Arkansas was 91st. His first year at Arkansas, they were 91st in the country in offense. Next 3 years, they were 9th, 17th, and 15th. Like, at Arkansas, like, we almost forgot Arkansas could be good at football because of some down years there before Sam Pittman arrived again. But Petrino's a really good offensive coach. So I feel like it's one of these things like Brian Kelly with his accent and stuff that everyone wanted it to be a failure so much they were convinced that it was going to be. Like, I feel like that's kind of how this is. Like, you're just kind of, oh man, I can't wait for this to go off the rails. And it's like, Petrino's a really good coach, and if he's got full reign of the offense, I mean, why would it not be successful?
Yeah, optics don't matter to A&M, right? Like, this stat, like, it's going to be Petrino, DJ Durkin, and Jimbo Fisher. Like, just don't care at all about the optics here in College Station. Like you said, he's had success wherever he's gone. Like, in 2017, his last year, I think, at Louisville, Lamar, did he win the Heisman in 2017 or 2016?
It was 2017 was Baker. So
okay,
I think
he had won it the previous year. They finished second in program history for yards per game. They were averaging like 544 yards a game. 3 top 5 scoring offenses in his career. I mean, he compiled 119-56 record in 14 seasons as a head coach. Like, the dude just wins everywhere. And like you said, the other thing about this is, I mean, A&M's offense was so bad. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, if Jimbo is really handing off the keys, which is the other part of this, that, like, he said, and everything right now on January 15th is Petrino's going to be able to run this the way Bobby Petrino wants to run this. We have not seen an offense that looks anything close to what Bobby Petrino ran at Louisville. Arkansas. He blends it, whether it's Ryan Mallett, Lamar Jackson, the guy just figures out a way to create yardage and to put together an electric elite offense. But I don't know, man. I'm just uncertain that Jimbo is actually going to hand off the keys 100% to Bobby Petrino. Like, that is my thing. It's like, yeah, he can respect him as much in the world. He's an older dude. They're on the block. It's a little bit different. with Petrino, been a head coach multiple times. Like there's a different sign of respect there, I'm sure. And Petrino obviously left UNLV and Barry Odom after like 3 weeks of being there to take this job. And it's like if he really thought there's a chance that Jimbo was not going to take his hands off, I doubt he takes it. But I mean, it's something to consider. Like, are we sure that Jimbo is going to be completely hands off and be a CEO coach now? Because that will make or break what happens here at Petrino in College Station. Is like, what is this going to be completely by Petrino's offense, or is Jimbo gonna meddle a little bit?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Obviously we don't know Bobby Petrino as a person, but I feel like we know this guy's got a big enough ego that he's not just gonna come be offensive coordinator and someone else is really running the show. And you also, like you said, from an optics standpoint, just from an optics standpoint, like we heard about Petrino to A&M like a month or so ago. Like it was a while ago that was kind of a rumor, but it took a while for that to actually happen. And your just natural instinct or your natural thought is it probably took some back and forth on like, okay, I have to have complete control, or like there's some sort of negotiation on like why it took so long, even though it was rumored for so long. And I would think that's because Petrino's gonna get his way. He's gonna run the offense. So as good as Jimbo Fisher has been, like he also needed a come to Jesus moment after missing a bowl game. Like, you gotta check your ego at the door. Like we need to figure out what to do with this offense. And I think there's no way that someone like Bobby Petrino is gonna come in and not have full run of the offense.
Yeah. We'll see. That makes A&M way more interesting going into next year. I mean, what this is going to look like with Connor Weigman and company. Haynes King, do you realize he was at Georgia Tech now? I'm like just going through the transfer portal quarterbacks. I did. And like Haynes King's just over here. He might be under center week 1 for the Jackets on the flats. Which fan base do you think turns on this coordinator hire the fastest? Can I answer this one, Matt Green?
Oh, yeah. Hit me.
It's going to be Dow Logans. This one is the Rich Gangarello of 2020.
Now remind the listeners where he's from, where he's at now.
He was the tight ends coach at Arkansas most recently with Sam Pittman and that staff. He's been around the NFL for a really long time, bounced a lot of different jobs. It's not good when you Google the history and just what his NFL tenure was like when named worst NFL play caller in 2017, I think.
Is that bad?
Yeah, 2017. The offense was 29th in points per game, averaged 16.7 yards, or 16.7 points per game, 29th in total offense, and averaged 291 yards. You just go up and down the list. Like
he coached quarterbacks for the Browns and the Bears.
Yeah.
In the mid 2010s, so obviously success speaks for itself. Track record speaks for itself.
I mean,
only elite quarterback play has ever come out of Cleveland.
Chicago. It's not good, Matt Green. Like this is one of those like Shane Beamer has been very defensive about this hire. Obviously, this offseason that a lot of people wanted him. It's like, man, two things can be true. Or they were not in on Garrett Riley and being annoyed that like that's out there, where it's like maybe they didn't, maybe like that might be a real thing. It's like they were not talking or interested in Garrett Riley and that they did really want Dow Logans. Like that can be true. But it's also like we can look South Carolina fans who are celebrating, like good luck with Garrett Riley. We're good over here with Dow Logans. It's like, what world are we living in? This offense was atrocious for every week of this season this past year, except for the last 2. I don't know with the mass exodus, like you get Spencer Rattler back. I mean, I guess that's nice, but Jaheim Bell is now a Florida State Seminole. You go up and down the list. Marshawn Lloyd is out the door. I don't know how you don't look at this situation in South Carolina and go, oh, this is the Scangarello all over again, where it's like, hey, we got the NFL experience. He's been an offensive coordinator. But every 49er fan was telling Kentucky fans, like, this is not going to go well. Like, good luck. He was the QB coach, and not exactly the same situation, because if you look at Brian Griese, who's now the QB coach in San Francisco, doesn't matter if it's Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, and Jimmy Garoppolo, they're soaring pretty well. They don't seem to miss Rich Gangarello. And that obviously the Kentucky offense imploded this past year, and they bring back Liam Cohen, who's actually good and going to do good things for the Wildcats. But, man, I think this is a disaster hire, and I think this is the one that fans turn on the fastest of anyone in this coordinator change list. And the South Carolina fans who were laughing at Clemson bringing in Garrett Riley, I think it's going to change very quickly when Cade Klubnik is a Heisman favorite through 6 to 7 weeks, and Spencer Rattler has more interceptions than touchdowns, like this past year. Like, it's just I don't see it going well. I really, really don't. And that's not because we're at this forever war with Shane Beamer versus Josh Heupel and the Tennessee South Carolina fan base.
There it is.
I don't think this is a good hire. I think this is the one that just I don't think it works out. I could be wrong, obviously, but that's my guess, is the one that people turn on the fastest.
Yeah, I could see it. I think it is part of that kind of narrative thing where it feels like you want this to happen because of Shane Beamer going on that rant about it. It's just like it felt like he felt too defensive about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, you just kind of look at his track record, and you know, obviously he's coaching the NFL, and that's can't necessarily say, well, you can't coach. You're a below average coach in the NFL, so you're not going to be a good offensive coach in college. Like, it's not always the case, but I mean, if you look at the places he's been, he's actually been offensive coordinator the last 5-6 years before Arkansas. It's the Bears, like bottom 3 or 4 in the NFL. It's the Dolphins, bottom 3 or 4 in the NFL. Like the Jets, I think maybe have been the literal worst offense in the league both years he was the offensive coordinator. Like, it is the NFL, but like with what college and like NFL teams are taking fired college coaches these days with Cliff Kingsbury. So like, it's not necessarily this like NFL is superior to college. Like there's different offensive or there's different minds that can coach this sport. It's just such a different skill set that goes into being pro or college. So it doesn't necessarily rule him out, but he hasn't really had much track record of success of any of the offenses he's been at. So in South Carolina, like you said, like they're one of the sadder stories of this transfer portal kind of era of just like a team that really did feel like they had their breakthrough season, and it's just like all the key players left, and there's like nothing to show for it. And there's not much talent on that South Carolina offense, and so like ultimately that's what the players are the ones that have to make the plays. So I think Dow Logan, he could be the one that the fan base turns on, even if I'm not sure it's his fault, because South Carolina doesn't look too hot right now.
From his Wikipedia page, it's probably never good. Logan's, is it Logan? It's just Logan's, right? It's spelled Logan's, huh?
I'm not sure 100%.
Like, I think it's Dow Logan's, but I don't know. I've heard different people say different things, and I don't want to be disrespectful, so I don't know if it's Dow Logan's but it's spelled Loggins. Dow Logan's. I don't know. But either way, it says here, Logan spent 2014 as the quarterback's coach for the Cleveland Browns. He was an advocate of drafting Texas A&M quarterback Johnny Manziel. That didn't really go well.
That's his entire legacy.
That's the only thing about Cleveland Browns. That's the only sentence he got about for the Browns.
This guy wanted to draft Johnny Manziel, so there's that.
I don't know, but yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. Bombs the most. We have a couple left here. Sean Lewis, who was the Kent State head coach, he goes to Colorado. I think this is a sneaky, interesting one because, look, we have no idea what Colorado is going to be in year one for Prime. Part of the issue that I think people are overlooking when it comes to Colorado, at least in 2023, and we've talked about it, the Pac-12 is freaking loaded at the top, Matt Green. Like, Cam Rising's back, Utah's not going anywhere, Caleb Williams and USC's not going anywhere, Washington's not going anywhere, Michael Penix Jr. is back, Oregon and Bo Nix are back, DJU is now at Oregon State. They just won 10 games without him with pretty subpar quarterback play. You go up and down, UCLA gets the Kent State quarterback, right, who Sean Lewis coached. He's going to be under center for replacing DTR at UCLA. They'll be really good with Chip Kelly. people are expecting like the quick transition, and I think there's a lot of hype, and obviously he's recruiting well, doing really well in the portal, but like I still have questions. But one of the things to remedy that, and this is something that Heupel utilized early on at Tennessee, was like, hey, don't have my guys yet. This is not like, it's going to be really hard. We lost a bunch of scholarship guys after what happened at the end with Jimmy Pruitt. We got to do something to help expedite this process. We got to do something to like give us an advantage when we have a dearth of talent to what we're going to be up against most Saturdays. That's tempo. Like, tempo was just killing people in 2021 for the Vols. Like, that was what they did, and they utilized to get people off. Like Javonte Payton, immediate first play touchdown at Kentucky, and things like that, where like the tempo just caught so many folks by surprise week in, week out, and it was just hard to prepare for. Even if Tennessee could not match talent-wise with whoever they were playing week to week, I mean, they were up on Georgia after the first quarter with the tempo, and Georgia had to adjust, and they did, and crushed them in the second half. But like, that is something that you have to do, is you have to find ways to balance out that lack of talent. And this is a lot of transition for Colorado. All that to say, Sean Lewis runs a really fast scheme. He just took the team to their first ever bowl win, Kent State. They're fast, quick snaps. The offense is wide open. A lot of Baylor Heupel-esque stuff to this offense. I think from Pete Thamel, who writes for ESPN, he said his offense is a descendant of the old school Baylor offense, which helped make devastating tempo vogue in college football more than a decade ago. This year, Kent State finished with the fastest offense in the group of five and the fourth fastest offense in college football. According to ESPN Stats and Information, it averaged 30.1 seconds of real time between snaps. Sources told ESPN that one of the appeals of Lewis working in Colorado, this is super interesting, Matt Graham, was that breakneck pace combined with the altitude in Boulder will wreak havoc on opposing defenses. I love this. They're going to use tempo and just the elements of Colorado and being out there in the mountains and being above elevation. We're going to outrun you. We're going to be used to the air. We're going to be used to working out in this each and every day. You won't, though, and it's going to be a trouble. Like, I am extremely fascinated about this little kernel here for Sean Lewis, if that's their strategy. This is the little things you have to do to jumpstart a program. What do you think, Matt Green?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a huge magnifying glass on everything that's happened with Colorado this year, and so I think they could make some noise. It's just hard to see, like, this isn't basketball. It doesn't take a guy could come in, get 3 or 4 players, and like completely change a program. Like, Colorado's still got a long way to build, but I'm not going to count Deion out, but I don't know if 2023 is the year, just because, like you said, the Pac-12 is pretty loaded.
But either way, I think they're going to be must-see television right away. I think that much is clear. Last big one, and we'll quickly hit on Barbada, Mississippi State, and Jay Hill to BYU. I have some Jay Hill thoughts that I think this is right up my alley as a Kalani Sitake and BYU guy. Phil Longo, I think, was the most bizarre hiring of the cycle, Matt Green. Would you agree?
Bizarre how?
Luke Fickell does not run, like, Phil Longo's an air raid disciple. Like, he got his offense from Mike Leach back when Mike Leach was the OC at Kentucky. We've never seen Wisconsin run anything close to the air raid. Whatever, like, you want to call Wisconsin offense, it's been the antithesis of Wisconsin football forever. We've never seen this, Matt Green. Like, I think Phil Longo to Wisconsin and Luke Fickell's staff is one of the more under-talked about. Like, we are not ready to process how weird Wisconsin football is going to look this fall, Matt Green. Like, they're going to be running RPO, downfield assaults. Tanner Mordecai is going to throw like 60 touchdowns, and you're going to be like, what am I watching right now? Are we sure this is Wisconsin? This is not the Wisconsin we have spent 30 years of our life being used to. Like, it's completely different. Like, we're not ready.
Absolutely. I think, do you think Luke Fickell said, hey, I want the job here because I'm going to make it the exact same as it's always been. Oh, you're hired. It's like you got to change it up. So I think this is another reason why Luke Fickell is like maybe my favorite hire from this offseason. I feel like Wisconsin, it seemed like, we didn't really necessarily know, like Paul Chryst, like that's not necessarily a sexy name. He got the Wisconsin job and he did fine. Like to see them actually go out and get a big name, like a guy that I think everyone would call a top 10 coach in this sport, to go out and get a guy like Fickell, like that was huge. And Fickell's definitely got plans to change the way they're doing things in Wisconsin. So I'm a big fan of that one.
You're really high on this one, and I think I am unsure how it's going to go for Fickell, Wisconsin. I think it was interesting that he took this because I thought he would just wait out Ohio State and Ryan Day getting an NFL job, but he took this one. That's not to say that he still couldn't make the jump to Ohio State if it opened up in a couple years, but Tanner Mordecai, I mean, is he immediately the best quarterback Wisconsin's had since Russell Wilson?
I mean, probably. And you just look at what Wisconsin, I think the reason I'm so high on it is just because Wisconsin has such a high floor. Like they're never a bad team. Like they're like Iowa, but even better. Like they're just, you just know exactly what you're getting. So if someone, like not necessarily comparing them to Georgia, but they've had Georgia-esque success over the Mark Richt period to what Wisconsin's been the last 10, 15 years or so. Like, they've been a really good program. The right guy, like, he could potentially get them winning Big Ten championships again and potentially getting in the college football playoff. Obviously, with a 12-team playoff, an even better chance. But I think Wisconsin just has a very high floor. They're just a really respectable program. And Fickell could take them to that next level.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if it ultimately unfolds that way, but I just think it's going to be fun no matter what Wisconsin looks like. Like, they're just going to be such a fascinating team to watch. And like you said, they've always had this high ceiling. I would have been more excited if Jim Leonhard stayed on as DC, but I totally understand why it's kind of awkward when you're angling for the full-time gig and you don't get it. You're like, I'd rather not go back to being an assistant and being the DC. That's just kind of weird. Mike Tressel's the DC, and I don't know if that's Jim's brother. Is that Jim's brother?
Is Jim Leonhard taking another job?
He is not, absolutely. I don't think.
Okay.
I do not think he has another job, unless I'm mistaken. I did not see he got hired.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't see it. But he's mentioned as Alabama defensive coordinator options. So maybe that's where Jim Leonhard winds up.
Shoot, honestly, that would make a lot of sense. I think Jim Leonhard, I was thinking he could be a guy who even gets a defensive or NFL defensive coordinator job or something like that.
What are we saying? We know it's going to be co-DC, Jeremy Pruitt, and Jim Leonhard at Alabama going into next year.
Jeremy Pruitt, I honestly didn't even consider that. And that would make a lot of sense. Alabama's defense had a lot of success with Jeremy Pruitt. Is Jeremy Pruitt toxic at this point? Do you not want a guy like that on your staff?
I think if you're just like Alabama and you're like, bring it. We don't care. Like, just who cares? Like,
Fair
what are you going to do? Go against Saban?
I guess that's what they thought about Lane Kiffin before he got in Alabama.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you just go in the Alabama incubator and it just doesn't matter. Maybe Derek Dooley gets promoted to OC and I don't know. They have some other analysts that I'm not certain about on that staff. But either way, last one, Jay Hill. How much do you know about Jay Hill, Matt Green?
He's App State, right?
No. Jay Hill was Weber State, sir.
I'm confusing him with one of the other guys on here.
Yeah.
Barbay. That's
yeah, he was App State for a year. But no.
Tell me about this guy.
Jay Hill, all kinds of success at Weber State, Matt Green. The dude's a winner. He's won wherever he's gone. His defenses were top-notch at Weber State. One of the best in FCS year over year. They finished top 30 total defense and scoring defense last 5 years. Top 10 passing defense. Just everything top 10, top 15, whatever. He takes over, like, this BYU defense. Like, one of the weird things about them this year was that the offense was still cooking and company. Like, they were fine with Hall, and he was banged up in and out. But, like, they have a lot of talent. They're rolling on offense. The defense, for whatever reason, just fell off a cliff. Like, their defense was horrific this year. They were 93rd nationally in total defense. They were awful all across the board, which was just so weird. It's not BYU football. Jay Hill is like the associate head coach and DC. So he worked with Kalani for years when they were both at the University of Utah. Strong connection there. you were starting to wonder, like, this is a little shaky. You got to get this right. Like, BYU, one of their staples. You're getting ready to move to the Big 12. You got to get this cleaned up before you make the jump to the Big 12. And they make a big hire. I think Jay Hill's going to be an awesome, awesome addition to the Cougs. And I think this was a big under-the-radar hire for them because the offense has been fine and they're going to be fine year over year. But they needed to fix that defense before they came into the Big 12 with a lot of the offenses they're going to be going up against. And I think Jay Hill is going to be a big savior for them.
Yeah, that's pretty big time to get a head coach to come coach your defense. So we'll see what happens. Is BYU cool getting all these Utah people coming in? Getting how do they feeling about that?
I mean, they have coaches. You coach them. There's a lot of coaches who've coached both stops. I think Whittingham coached at both stops, right?
Sataki is a BYU guy, but he was at Utah for a period. So
let me see. Did Kyle Whittingham ever coach at BYU too? I think he was at Utah State and he was at Idaho State. That's what it was. And BYU, yeah, he was a grad assistant at BYU in '85.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
it's not the first time.
No. But either way, both football factories. Utah, they know football, man. Whether it's the Utes or the Cougs, they know how to win a lot of football games.
And this is starting 2023, right?
Yeah, they're in the Big 12.
Cincinnati, they're all in the Big 12. This should be a lot of fun this year.
Well, we
get 1 year of this just crazy Big 12.
So
the Big 12 just doesn't even know what to do with the number of teams. They've had 10 teams forever long. We're gonna have 14 in the Big 12 this year, and then I guess go back to. I guess it will be 12 once this is all settled.
Yeah, until they just add Memphis and an SMU or something.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to happen.
Yeah,
hey, Pac-12 does make a move. Fresno State, San Diego State, geography doesn't matter anymore in these conferences, so I won't rule anything out.
Yeah, Pac-12, they're kind of screwed. I feel like it's just San Diego State and Boise are their main two moves for football only, maybe. I don't know. Matt Green, this is a fun exercise. What'd you think?
Yeah, it was good stuff, man. I think so many times we look at the head coaching moves, but the coordinators can oftentimes be just as important. We've seen guys like Joe Brady, really make a huge impact somewhere like LSU, and like you said with Todd Monken, like that was really the guy who just completely changed Georgia's offense the last couple years. So one of these guys, Garrett Riley, one of these we could be talking the same in a couple years that they're the ones that got these teams to break through. So it should be interesting.
For sure. Well, Matt Green, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you as always. Congratulations again on the back-to-back national title wins, hopefully for America's sake. It's not a three-peat.
Before we get off here, I think we need an update on this everything school nonsense that's going on. What did I see? Is Tennessee 14-3 right now in college basketball? And Georgia's 13-4, I want to say. Bulldogs playing some basketball, sir. Everything school up in Athens. Don't you forget.
Let me go.
I will be there. I will be there on the 28th. Georgia, South Carolina. We're going to that game. So, we'll see how the Stegosaurus will be rocking, sir.
Tennessee beat South Carolina by 50 the other night.
Mike White changing the game, sir.
Tennessee still number 1 in defense in KenPom. Number 2 team overall in the country in KenPom. They lost to Kentucky. That was a rough loss. They missed a billion layups. Poorly officiated game.
Poorly officiated game, he says. Here it is.
You didn't watch it?
Here
what are we
comes.
doing? You didn't watch it, Matt Green. I'm trying to find Georgia.
I saw Shebue putting in work on the Tennessee Volunteers. That's what I saw.
126th in offense for the Georgia Bulldogs. We get Georgia here.
Just win, baby. Just win. 13-4. I don't think Georgia won 13 games either of the past 2 seasons, total. They were at single digits last year for sure. But
I need to see. We play all. On
I
the
just heard
25th.
A lot of talk about Georgia hibernating for 8-9 months. It's while all the other schools in the SEC pretend to care about other sports more than football. But watch out now, Georgia. They play some other sports too.
no, you're hibernating. What are we doing? Like, Tennessee is a preseason number 2 in baseball. They have the number 1 overall pick as their Friday night starter and Chase Dollander. Like, the optimism is through the roof. Like, they're just going to murder people all season long. And then basketball is still the favorite outside of Bama lost 2 on Saturday.
You got these facts and such. I'm not gonna go there with you. I don't know enough about college baseball to argue with you. But Georgia's got a quality program. Not Tennessee's level, but Tennessee needs to win a championship. Before they're talking everything school stuff. That's all I'm saying. Rick Barnes, get this guy to a Final Four. Do something.
I'm not taking the bait. Late on this Sunday night. Everything school HQ. I'm not worried. It's a good time. We get the dogs here in Knoxville on the 25th, so I'll be there and I'll send you live updates.
Is that right?
Yeah, you'll be here. I'll send you some.
It is officially basketball season. I mean, we still got NFL playoffs and such happening, but it's finally time that I start to really dig into this round ball we got going on in college and in pros. So keep a small eye on the pros, while football season's still been going on. But I haven't hardly watched any college basketball, so I gotta ramp it up. Be ready for March.
He's just all about the Terry Roberts show over there in Athens. Matt Green,
absolutely.
Matt Green, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir, and I will talk to you next week.
Yes, sir.